notepad to just get some cues on what I wanted to talk about. A few weeks back, Sandhya called me and asked me to talk about my profession and what I do, because I think there are a lot of people around, we're very familiar with a lot of things that various people do, especially doctors and teachers and things like that. But in technology, I thought, okay, I can talk about women in technology because that's what I have been doing. And I decided, why is it that I want to talk about it? It's mainly because, in my profession, there are very, very few women. And it's very surprising for me because when I look at the statistics all over the place, and I think recently in Time magazine, there was an article about how many women are in the workforce today. There are almost 50% of the women are in workforce today. But in my profession, I don't see 50%. And then the other thing is even college education. Okay, maybe I'm a little older, I'm an older generation, but even within the age group of like 25 to 35, I don't see many women in technology. Even though the number of college graduates, women college graduates is about 38%, and the number of men is 28, something like that. There's almost a 8 to 10% difference. So I wanted to kind of do a little bit of investigation on why it is, and I mainly did a lot of introspection based upon my career, which I don't do a whole lot of that, but I did do that to kind of see why is it that is happening. So I'll basically speak about that. I'll go to the next slide, so I tell you what I'm going to talk about. I was going to give you a little bit background about myself because I don't know if many of you know me and know where I've come from. And then I'll explain what I consider technology is, and talk about how to stay on top of technology, and then mainly discuss all the challenges we have in technology and really what are the rewards that we get by working in this field. And my goal is, I always encourage in my company the women to kind of take the technological field and try to advance, but women tend to go into different directions. We'll go to the next slide. So my background, I just want to talk about myself. I am from Andhra, but I didn't grow up in Andhra. I grew up in Bombay and Delhi. Most of my higher education was in Delhi. I went to an engineering college in Delhi, which was mainly male-dominated. We had about 50 girls and 2,000 boys. So that was the ratio that I worked with. So it was demanding right there. Right there you felt it to be a little difficult to work in that environment. But now when I go back to India and I see that proportion has changed really drastically, and I'm very glad to see that. And I originally studied mathematics and then went into computer science, and after that I did control engineering from University of Michigan. I did my master's in control engineering from Michigan. And I did, in my early career, you end up, whatever you study in school, you end up using it a lot. I did a lot of hardware design and things like that. And you kind of work in that area, and same thing, you work in a lot of software area that you think is what you've learned in school. But very quickly, within a few years, you find out that you're obsolete. There is, whatever you studied in school is completely changed, and you have to take on next steps. So the next set of years, I kind of moved into the wireless. In the late 80s, I moved into the wireless side. I knew nothing about wireless, nothing about RF technology and things like that. But eventually, you kind of, next 10 years, you kind of learn and you grow in that area. And then, of course, I did take on personal challenges of starting up my own company. And yes, it wasn't very successful. The company did not succeed, but I really feel I succeeded because I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned all my strengths. I learned my weaknesses. And that helped me move on with the next set of things. Then I joined another startup that some friends of mine were doing. And then I moved into that startup, did get bought by Alcatel. And that's how I've ended up at Alcatel. And I've been with Alcatel now for about 7 or 8 years and working mainly on next generation switches and next generation wireless networks. Okay, so going to the next